If you're a white person, we need to start getting even louder on behalf of our friends and family who are minorities.
White people, let's talk about it. Let's talk about our violence, white violence. No more deflecting, no more blaming everything on everybody else. Let's confront ourselves.
Yes, they see my white face. Yes, they know history, but black people don't hate me.
I was raised Christian. I cannot explain to you why my faith in God, my morality, and my racism took so long to cross paths. I can't explain it, but it probably took about 40 years to figure that out.
Hey, black people, listen up. I'm talking to you. You say you don't feel safe when the police pull you over. You say that when your home gets appraised, it gets a lower value than white people. You say when you go to the hospital, they don't take your complaints seriously. You say the bank doesn't approve you for loans. You say employers turn you down for jobs during interviews. You say this entire system is rigged against you. Well, listen up. When I see the cops pull you over, I'm stopping and I'm filming it. I got your back. If they're purposely appraising your house too low and you need me to be your brother while you're out of town, I got your back. I will stand beside you until systematic oppression is defeated. I will not stand by idly. Silence is compliance. I will unlearn the hate that I was taught, and I will not pass it down to my children.
In America, it's not every day that we hear white Americans openly calling out their own community, admitting that they once held racist views but have since changed. Whenever I hear them standing up for black folks, it honestly gives me hope, because the truth is, racism is not just a battle for black and brown people. It is a fight for all Americans, and the people who choose to challenge hate from within their own community deserve recognition. So today, we are going to listen to some powerful voices, white Americans, who are speaking out about how they used to be racist but transformed. I want us to give them a big shout out because what they are doing is very important. I'll be watching along with you, and at the end, I'll share my own commentaries. The video is for educational purposes, and the full credits belong to original creators of the clips used in the video. Let's get into it.
White people, let's talk about it. Let's talk about our violence, white violence. No more deflecting, no more blaming everything on everybody else. Let's confront ourselves. White people in America, our history is so extremely violent. And instead of confronting that, we continue to blame other people for the issues and the problems in this country, instead of just taking ownership of our part to play in everything, which is a huge part. Can we stop scapegoating other groups of people, please, and just look at ourselves? White people, it's time to talk about it. Like, it's long past time. Getting rid of other groups of people in this country is not going to make this country better. It's not going to make your life better. It's not going to make you better. I think white people are so scared to talk about race and to talk about white violence and white supremacy because they don't want to connect themselves to it. We don't want to feel like we're a part of the problem. But unless you're acknowledging the reality of how the US, this country, runs, you are a part of the problem. I truly believe in my heart, in my soul, that if you're born a white person in this country or on this planet, but I'll just speak about this country, part of that journey is to dismantle systems that have been built to oppress other people. The hard work of life is to confront yourself. How do I benefit from the way that things are? And how does my benefiting from those things harm other people? And instead of walking around with 1,000-pound bag of shame on your back, consider it your responsibility to do that work. Consider it an opportunity that you are in the best possible position to make this world a better place by not accepting racist and prejudiced and oppressive systems for what they are and trying to contribute to changing them. Use the privilege that you have for good. I don't think that anybody can ever really love themselves without being honest about themselves, without being honest with themselves. And that work is painful and hard, but it's so worth it. White people, you don't have to consciously think that you're better than other people in order to contribute to harm against them. All it takes to contribute to harm is to stay silent and disengaged. White people, Can we finally get this shit right? Can we finally take accountability? Can we finally look ourselves in the mirror and decide that this isn't good enough? We're not doing a good enough job. You aren't losing because somebody else is safe and cared for. You aren't losing because somebody different than you exists. White people, let's talk about it. Let's start having these conversations with ourselves and with each other.
If you're a white person, we need to start getting even louder on behalf of our friends and family who are minorities. Our government has antagonized them to no end. They're ripping up the street that proclaimed Black Lives Matter. They're removing accomplishments from our minority service members off of the Pentagon website. And now our federal government erased a ban on contractors who run segregated facilities. They are trying so hard to enrage our brothers and sisters of color. They want them angry and they want them out in the streets. It is so clear. I'm so proud of them for not taking the bait. I'm so proud of them for staying home and resting. But as they do, we have to fight on their behalf. The Civil Rights Act was only passed in 1964. I'm in my early 40s, but my parents grew up with segregation in their schools. And there's no way in hell, all these years later, we're going to go backwards to anything even remotely resembling that. If places are segregated and say whites only, that's not a place I will ever be. And any line of thinking that keeps us separate from one another is a thinking that we need to reject loudly and wholeheartedly. Nobody is better than anybody else in this country because of the color of their skin. We are not, in 2025, going to sit around and watch as a bunch of people make laws trying to make us go backwards. We have to be the loudest ones. We have to be the protectors. We have to be the allies. We have to be the advocates. We have to be the ones whose voices are the loudest in saying, we will not go backwards, and you will not oppress the minority community. Not on our watch. Not now, and not ever.
Why I stopped being a racist, part 1. I've been asked probably well over 1,000 times in the comments and messages why I chose to confront my own racism and my prejudice ideology. So I thought I'd just have an honest conversation with you and break it down over a few parts and let you see into the mind of someone like me, the way I grew up, and the man I'm becoming. Now here's the crazy thing. I've only ever known one racist in my life for sure, and that's me, because I can't speak into the hearts and minds of another human being and what they think and feel. That's not fair, and that's prejudicial of me. So I'm the only one I've ever known, so I feel I can speak with authority about this. I'm not calling out other people who are. This is simply about my evolution and the things I confronted and some of the difficulties and some of the beautiful parts of this. This is not an easy thing for me to do. This is kind of laying my soul bare. So if you would, let me know if this is something you want me to continue in the comments, please. Because it's going to take a lot for me to invest emotionally to be open about this. Now, why is it I grew up with so much prejudice and bias and discrimination in my life? Well, I grew up in a small town in Arkansas, and I am Arkansas proud. Let me just say that right off the top. But I grew up with people who taught me these things, and it was instilled in me. I mean, it was just reinforced over and over. And then for the most part, I lived in an echo chamber of other people who thought the same thing. So I didn't know it was possible to think any other way. I was raised Christian. I cannot explain to you why my faith in God, my morality, and my racism took so long to cross paths. I can't explain it, but it probably took about 40 years to figure that out. There's a whole series of events in my life, I guess, ultimately that led up to this. And prison was probably one of the biggest catalysts, because when you're on 23-1 lockdown with someone of a different color from you in the same cell, you shut your mouth and you listen. You ask questions. And I had so many different cellmates from different countries, from different races and heritages. And it just really opened my mind. And sitting in prison, I had a lot of time to think. And I had some old timers tell me, I need to do my time. Don't let my time do me. And those are good words of advice. But I started digging deep into myself and my flaws, and because I was probably the biggest asshole I knew at that time, and I wasn't proud of that at all. And I knew I needed to change if I wanted to live a productive and healthy life and just be somebody likable. I just couldn't see the world for the way it really was. And that breaks my heart that it took me so long to see it. But the beauty that is born from this change, Amir, this growth is just crazy. God is amazing. So if you want me to continue this, let me know and I'll do a part 2.
It might be weird, but I've been making an effort to try to see the world through the eyes of Black Americans. And I wanted to share a couple of things that I've learned so far. I'm John. I make content that tries to model empathy and curiosity for our social differences. Number 1 on the list, Black people don't hate me. I guess I didn't know necessarily how they would react, knowing all of our history. But yes, they see my white face. Yes, they know history. But one of my friends said one time, if you're cool with us, we're cool with you. And that made a lot of sense to me. Number 2, many Black people don't feel comfortable in white spaces. This is something I discovered by posting videos and all the comments. Many people said they may feel, or it may appear that they're comfortable, they may look relaxed, but there's just kind of a vibe that they don't belong there. Maybe it's unfortunately sometimes explicit, but vast majority is probably more like microaggressions that people don't even realize. But there's that. Number 3, Black history is American history. They corrected me on this early on, and it's because it's not that we don't want to have a designation for understanding the history and the experiences of Black Americans, but it's more like when we call it Black history, that implies that it doesn't belong to anyone else. Whereas if you really think about it, slavery, for example, that's more like white history than Black history. Number 4, I shouldn't focus on all the bad stuff so much. When I'm making videos, try to explore our worlds. I do have a tendency, maybe it's my own curiosity or maybe it's my biases, to focus on slavery and discrimination and segregation. And people have told me, hey, look, we do want people to understand those things better, but we also don't want to be defined by that. So I also need to focus on the amazing and greatness of Black people and their contributions in our country. Number 5, they know I have blind spots of my own and they're okay with that. It's more like, what's my attitude about it? Am I aware or trying to be aware? Do I have some humility about it? Am I open to learning? Or do I have a vibe like, I don't even care if I have blind spots. I don't care how they come across to you. That's a big difference. And number 6, Black people don't want revenge. They want to live life abundantly. Yes, they want to live in a fair society. They don't want harms and injustice and flawed systems to be papered over or denied. They want accountability, but more than anything, they just want to live and be themselves and have fun and feel like they belong here. Not just on paper, but they feel it. Anyway, I'm learning a lot and it's been a great journey and I'm going to continue and I'll share some more.
But one reason, I think, one of the main reasons that a lot of white people, a lot of us are really unhappy and miserable is because we lack internal congruence. Now, congruence is a concept we learned early in grad school to help people heal. And congruence is basically internal alignment. Values and actions are on the same page, right? Like we accept every part of ourselves. We feel peace, security in who we are, congruence. And no matter how hard you try, you can never find internal congruence if you're not congruent with the world around you. If you're not understanding what's real and seeing reality and affirming what's true. So like white people who deny patriarchy and capitalism's negative effect and oppression of the world and genocide that's happening around the world, like that's incongruent with reality. That is going to have an effect on us internally. Because to deny what's happening in real time, we have to deny certain parts of us, certain emotions, certain thoughts that come up. And the more we run for that, the more incongruent and separate we feel, the more dissonance that comes, the more miserable we are. And a lot of times we're not actually dealing with our own pain and our own reality because we're all suffering under capitalism and white supremacy. Like it affects us different ways in intersectionality, but like it affects us white people too. You don't think a stormtrooper in the fucking Star Wars movies hates his life? You don't think he hates being bossed around all the time? You don't think poor white people living in the empire, like in a city walls, like in a Game of Thrones, like you don't think that they're miserable under it, even though they're not miserable the most? To be congruent inside, to not be miserable anymore, it takes accepting the realities of the world, seeing how those toxic systems affect us, and then moving to actually be congruent. Because deep down, humanity has goodness at its center. So yeah, white people, we're miserable because we're not congruent, because we're denying the realities of the world, and thus denying ourselves. But one reason, I think, one of the main reasons that a lot of white people, a lot of us are really unhappy and miserable is because we lack internal congruence. Now, congruence is a concept we learned early in grad school to help people heal, and congruence is basically internal alignment. Values and actions are on the same page, right? Like we accept every part of ourselves, we feel peace, security in who we are, congruence. And no matter how hard you try, you can never find internal congruence if you're not congruent with the world around you. If you're not understanding what's real and seeing reality and affirming what's true. So like white people who deny patriarchy and capitalism's negative effect.
Tell me something that white people say to let you know that they're low-key racist.
Funny you should ask. I have a list. All lives matter. Race baiting. Politically correct. Race card. Reverse racism. Black on black crime. I'm not a racist, but identity politics. Why isn't there a White History Month? Check my last video for that one. Heritage, not hate. Saying to a black person, can I touch your hair? Saying to a black person, you're so articulate. Focusing on the criminal activity of a victim when a black person is killed by a cop, or saying, if he just would have complied. And lastly, when issues of race are being discussed, they say, why do you talk about race so much? That's all I have right now. It is not the full list. What else did I miss? And happy Black History Month.
Dear white people, you're not racist just because someone says you are. There's a theory going out there that there's this race of people that are causing all the problems in the US, and that is just not true. It's a blatant lie, and it's created to put races against each other. Well, I'm going to debunk something. There are not multiple races of humans. There's one race, the human race. I'm part of that race, you're part of that race, we're all part of that race, and we're a big family. And there are some black people like myself, there are lots of us that don't believe white people are the problem. There is individual responsibility. I want to be judged by the content of my character and not the color of my skin. So I'm going to do the same thing for you. I'm going to judge you by the content of your character and not by the color of your skin. If you agree with this, you're part of the human race. And welcome to the family.
The way a white person talks about people of color when they're angry is what shows their true colors. Prior to Trump's presidency, it wasn't in style to be racist, and actually it was looked down upon. White people realized that they could lose their jobs, and so they became better and better at hiding it. And because of this, the only way that they would reveal their true feelings is when a person of color makes them angry. For instance, take a look at this video with Charlie Kirk.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Shank.
And I would say this phenomenon is pretty common among white people. They might seem like they're okay until someone makes them upset. And then they result to slurs, name calling, etc. It's something you see a lot in comment sections as well. And essentially what's happening is that the more threatened they feel, the more they need to lash out. They're so used to being in power and respected all the time that when a person of color, quote, steps out of line in their eyes, then they immediately feel the need to retaliate. And sometimes it's just verbal assaults, like calling somebody slurs, and other times it actually does lead to physical violence. This is just a reminder that the only way to see how some white people feel about you truly is when they're angry. And if they get really out of line, even if they apologize, you should absolutely not be friends with this person because they clearly do not value you.
When white people see my posts about racism in America, frequently they say, I didn't know. When black people see these comments, they say, we already know. There is no way you didn't know. Don't pretend you didn't. This disconnect is really hard to explain, and I've been trying to understand it myself. I'm going to be digging into this really deep because I think it's so important. It's not that we're just oblivious white people. It's that we've been groomed to be oblivious white people. People point out that it's not like this stuff is locked in some vault somewhere. It's available. You can see it. And that's true. But we were trained not to ask questions. We were trained not to look for it. And I see it in my family. I see it in my circle of friends, even some of my friends that are pretty progressive. We have this ingrained training to not ask too many questions. We were taught to trust authority figures, teachers, ministers, police officers, politicians, the anchor guy on the evening news. We believed them because we were groomed from childhood to believe that they were trustworthy. We were not taught that the system itself, the system they were part of, was designed to protect itself first. And frankly, it felt good just to trust them. It's like you had this permanent mommy and daddy figure. It made life feel safe. The gaps in white knowledge were filled in with lies. We were told that poor people were lazy, that's why they're poor. That crime existed in black neighborhoods because they were black neighborhoods. That broken families cause poverty. These ideas were not questioned. They were treated as common sense. And we were started with our grooming as infants, as little tiny babies, as little bitty kids that are impressionable and just forming our ideas about the world. So that was our social foundation. We were told that black people can't keep their marriages together. I was even told that the reason they couldn't keep their marriages together was because of how they were treated during slavery. So out of one side of their mouth, they'd say, wasn't that horrible that families were split up during slavery? But now that has just become part of who they are. And so it's their fault. I don't know, it didn't make sense to me either. We also were not told that welfare benefits were not available if there was a man in the house, a black woman working 2 jobs who still needed support to raise her children, could not have a husband or partner living in the house with her. And of course we were taught that that was their fault because they couldn't keep their marriages together. As we were growing up and we started to repeat these beliefs, we were seen as respectful and well-adjusted. I don't know, are you getting pissed off? I'm getting pissed off just going through this again. We were guided by the TV news and movies and TV shows to care when white people suffered and to disconnect from the pain of other people. We were taught to feel patriotic about our country without questioning whether they were being truthful with us about why we should feel such patriotism. When we asked those white authority figures that we were taught to trust, we were lied to. Now, when black people give us honest answers, we don't fully trust them. It's not about ignorance, it's about conditioning. My education is in behavior analysis, and that's how that works. You just expose someone to a social system that supports a certain line of thinking, and you fall for it, especially if you are started out as a young kid being taught all that stuff. And that's what happens to all of us. We were taught that silence is polite and that truth about society is rude or inappropriate. And as a girl that went to a fundamentalist Christian church, that was even more so. You don't ask questions that are going to make people uncomfortable. But that comfort, you see, it kept us obedient. It kept us from asking too many questions. It kept us from wanting to do anything about it because we didn't fully understand that there was something that needed to be done. We were used to preserve a system that depended on our own silence. It kept us from befriending black people. It kept us from knowing what the hell we thought we knew about those people. So when white people say, I didn't know about any of this, understand what that really means. We were trained not to look. We were trained to believe the stories that we were told by the authority figures. We were shaped by a system that used your trust against you. We were trained to look away. And now we have a choice. White people, we need to get angry about being kept in the dark all these years so that together with our black neighbors and neighbors of all races, we can break down this oppressive system that has brought us here to the point of fascism. Check the caption for some documentaries to help you get started learning. We need to really get curious.
This might be a hot take, but there's a huge difference between being not racist and anti-racist. Growing up as a white person, I was not racist. I didn't say the N-word, but I also was terrified to participate in any sort of discussion about race. I sort of just stayed out of it, right? I was like, this isn't a problem I contribute to, but it's also not gonna be a problem that I help put an end to, I guess. Then I went to college at Brown, and that's where I learned that not being racist is in its own way contributing to racism. Because if you are too scared as a white person to call out the racism of other people or to critically examine your own biases, especially your implicit ones, that is still a contributing factor to the problem. And that's why I now make the content that I do, because I'm thinking back to all of these things that I heard as a child, and I'm seeing my entire life in a new light. Like, wow, this family was quite racist, this friend was racist, all these things that the people I went to high school with that they did, sort of critically examining it as well as my own biases. So if you are someone who continues to insist that you're not racist, you're probably contributing to the problem. There's always more to learn.
Those clips we just watched are very powerful. It's not every day that we hear white Americans openly admit, yeah, I used to be racist, but I changed. That is not small. That is very huge. As someone who is not even American but loves Black Americans and cares about their fight, this makes me very proud, because racism is not just a Black problem or a brown problem. It is an American problem. And when white people call out their own people, that is real progress. One of them said, white people, let's talk about our own violence, no more deflecting. Because the truth is, change starts when you stop blaming everyone else and face yourself. America cannot heal if white folks pretend racism is someone else's issue. Accountability is not about hating yourself. It's about respecting the truth and wanting better. A lot of them explained how they grew up in racist homes, small towns, surrounded by people who thought the same way. If you are born into it, you might believe it is normal. But the good news is, you don't have to stay stuck. Education, meeting people from different backgrounds, even tough experiences like prison can shake you awake. That is the story from many of these people, and that is real growth. I loved the honesty of the guy who said, I was raised Christian, but it took me 40 years for my faith and racism to cross paths. That is deep, because how can you claim to love God and still hate His creation? Sometimes culture and family teach you one thing, but your faith and your heart keep pulling you another way. When those two meet, that is when changes happen. Then there is a list of things Black folks go through. Unsafe police stop, pain ignored in the hospitals, loans denied, job lost in the interviews. That is not in your own head. That is systemic racism. That's the system showing up in everyday life. When ally says, I will film the police, I will stand with you, that is action. Words are good, but action is better. And that is the system showing up in everyday life. So when allies say, I will film the police, I will stand with you, that is action. Words are good, but action is better. Another creator talked about congruence. Big word, but simple meaning. It's when your values and your action actually match. If you say you believe in equality, but you stay silent when you see injustice, that is not congruence. That is living double. And double life always eats you inside. And that is why many white folks feel unsettled. It is because they are denying reality. The moment you face it, you feel lighter. One creator listed low-key racist phrases. All lives matter. Why no White History Month? He should have compiled. If you ever said those things, this is not about shame. It's about realizing how those words minimize real struggles. Upgrade your language, learn better, speak better. This is a part of change. Another point, watch what people say when they are angry. That is when the mask is off. If slurs or stereotypes comes out the moment someone is mad, that's the real them. And to anyone watching, if ever done that, don't deny it. Own it. Apologize. And fix it. That is how growth works. One of the best lines mentioned in the video was, you're not losing because someone else is safe. Fact, a Black family getting fair treatment does not hurt a white family. Equality does not take food off your table. It just means everyone is getting fair shot. And let's not forget the Civil Rights Act was only in 1964. That is like one generation ago. Some people alive today went to segregated schools. So don't say that's the past. The past is sitting at your dinner table. So if change can happen in one lifetime, then more change can happen now if people fight for it. Someone said Black history is American history because you can't tell Americans' history without slavery, jazz, civil rights, inventions, culture, all brought by Black people. Calling it just Black history makes it sound optional. It's not. It is central. Another big point. Black folks don't always feel safe in white spaces. Even if nobody shouts slurs, there is often small comments, microaggressions, or just vibes that say you don't belong. Inclusion isn't just saying you can come. It's asking how can we change the space so you feel at home. And to white viewers, hear this. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you live in shame. You didn't create every system, but you can help fix them. That is your chance to do good. And to black viewers, and all marginalized groups, you don't owe forgiveness to anyone. Protect your peace. You have the right to set boundaries. But also, when you see genuine change, know that your voice helped inspire it. That is power. One person in the video said, there is one race, human race. Yes, that is true. But unity doesn't mean ignoring race. Racism was built into the system. Pretending it doesn't exist won't fix it. Real unity is facing it and hitting it together. At the end of the day, racism doesn't just hurt black folks. It twists the mind of those who practice it. It teaches fear, division, and lies. Everyone suffers. Shout out to these creators. They didn't just talk, they changed. They are the proof that unlearning is possible. To everyone watching, drop a comment. What's one belief you've unlearned or one action you are taking right now? Let's keep this conversation going because silence is not neutral and unity only works when it is honest. That was it for today. Make sure give a like to this video and also if you've not yet smashed on the subscribe button, make sure you subscribe so that you won't miss the next episode. Peace out.